perseverance, trust, gratitude.
The Brave Files are supported by Julian Desjardins, a certified strategist for small business owners. If you've already made that brave decision to start your own business, it's time to stop trying to do it all alone. Check out our show notes for more information or visit juliandesjardins.com.
You are listening to The Brave Files, real stories from people living courageously. You can listen to the show anywhere you enjoy podcasts, and we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on Apple Podcasts. It really does make a difference, and we appreciate it. Now here's your host, Heather Vickery.
Welcome to The Brave Files, everyone. This is Heather Vickery. You know, this show has allowed me to meet many interesting new people who have truly stepped into bravery and lived courageous lives or continue to live courageous lives. But it's also given me an opportunity to think more deeply about the people that I already know. People who I sometimes forget how extraordinary their stories are because they're just woven into my everyday fabric. And people who have been in my life for a really long time. I know a lot of really cool people, and it's fun to share their stories with you. So today's guest, Dana Gerrits, is a woman I have known virtually, literally virtually, because we've never met in person since before Facebook even existed. We met in an online pregnancy group almost 15 years ago now, when we were both pregnant with our oldest children. She now has 5 adorable kids, and we had our youngest daughters within weeks of each other, which is a really random coincidence. But Dana's story of raising 5 kids, which I think she'll tell you is probably the easiest part of her story, homeschooling, facing a really horrible life-altering illness, and then deciding to take her family on a nomadic journey is truly extraordinary. Dana, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited. When I came up with this concept for the show, you were one of the first people that came to mind. And I would love to just kind of jump right in, tell us a little bit about who you are and what's going on. Why would I bring you on the show, Dana?
All right. Well, like you said, I am a mom of 5. And right around the time that I was pregnant with my youngest, when you were pregnant with your youngest, I started getting sick. And I wasn't exactly sure what was going on, but it ended up being a really sort of debilitating illness that I took several years to figure out. And after that, I decided that I needed to really live my life. And I guess that's probably, we're nomadic now. And that's probably why you have me on the show. I don't know that I particularly feel as though I am brave, but looking back, I suppose I can see certain areas where I made choices. And those sorts of things I would think of as being courageous.
Yeah. So when you started to get sick, you were pregnant at the time, or it was right after you had Claire?
It actually, when we were looking back, it was actually when I was pregnant. I thought I was just the most unlucky pregnant person because I kept getting what I thought was a flu bug or food poisoning. And I had that several times towards the end of my pregnancy. And then when she was 6 weeks old, that was the first time I had a really severe reaction. I went to the ER because I couldn't breathe. I was, vertigo, severe GI symptoms. It was really bad. And then I was unable to get out of bed for about 10 days. I had the curtains drawn. I had migraines, and just getting from the bed to the bathroom, I was so dizzy. My husband had to help me. Yeah, so it was just after she was born where it started getting really serious. And then it was about 2 years from that point until I had a diagnosis.
Right. So if memory serves, those symptoms you were just describing were pretty consistent for a really long, for those 2 years, right?
Yeah, they were. What's interesting is that it's a very unpredictable sort of disease. It's mast cell activation disorder. And, because allergies can be cumulative, there was, one day I would eat something and be fine, and I'd eat the same exact thing the next day and be horribly ill from it. So we could never pinpoint exactly what was going on. I always felt like it was something I was eating because I always seemed to get sick around the time that I was eating something. But it was never so consistent that I could easily say, okay, I ate X and then Y happened. So obviously I should stop eating that. It was never that consistent. And it turned out it could be anything from stress to taking a hot shower, really cold temperatures, just normal hormonal fluctuations throughout the day. So I was more likely to get sick in the evening. So it's a very particular sort of annoying disease that it's hard to just kind of pinpoint and say, oh yeah, this is what's happening. And then the other part of it is that I didn't have classic anaphylactic symptoms where you would see like on a TV show where somebody's lips would swell up, or their face would, you get stung by a bee and you get like the bee stung lips sort of thing. I didn't have that reaction. And so a lot of the times, I went to the ER probably almost once a month, and they didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. I thought maybe I was going crazy.
I'll bet you did.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really hard. And especially since having just had a baby, it was easy for me to write it off as hormonal, that there's something wacky going on with my hormones.
Sure. Yeah.
And then it was suggested that it might be panic attacks. And at that point I was like, okay, well, let's fix it. Like, I'm not, there's no stigma here. Like, if I'm having panic attacks, it's really affecting my life. What do I do to fix it? And so, I developed a few kind of coping strategies that I had learned about panic attacks. So one of the things I would do when I couldn't breathe is I would sing really loudly, even though I can't sing at all. But
that's awesome. That's really great.
Yeah. And so I'd be walking and kind of rocking my baby, and I would be singing really loud because I felt as though if I can sing, I can breathe. And so I must be breathing, and so I must be fine. And I would just continue to tell myself that I must be fine because the doctors keep sending me home and I'm still breathing. I must be fine. There's something going on, but maybe it's nothing. And I think that's where the trust part came in, is that I really had to trust myself. I had to trust what I was experiencing as being something real. And even though your mind can kind of play tricks on your body and give you, symptoms that are really actually happening to you, but are caused from your brain, I was like, well, maybe that's what's going on. But either way, what I'm experiencing, it's real. And there has to be a way to fix that.
So how did you go from the doctors constantly sending you home, no idea what's causing all of this crazy stuff? Because you just said it, allergic to everything.
Yeah.
Like, at some point or another, everything I can't imagine being afraid to take a hot shower when you're so miserable. You have a new baby. The hot shower is like, the win. If I could just get a shower. So how did you go from that to actually having a diagnosis? And then from there, you still didn't really have all the information you needed to live as healthy a life as you possibly could.
Right. So I don't know. It was just this knowing that there was something going on and that I wasn't going to just stop looking for the answers. And I just kind of figured if one doctor didn't know, and sometimes doctors are kind of like, they don't really want to admit that they don't know, but sometimes you run into really great doctors that are like, you know what, let me refer you to this person because maybe they know. And so I ended up going to several different sort of specialties. And it was really what happened was it was Mother's Day. And my husband and the 5 kids, we all went out for a hike because I love being outdoors. I love hiking. And we had a picnic planned for that day. And my husband had actually drove all the way down to where we used to live, which was like 40 minutes in the opposite direction from where he worked than where we lived at the time. And he got me a really special beer from a brewery that I used to love to go to. And so he brought that and he was really excited about it. I was nervous because I knew that I had sometimes a reaction to certain kinds of alcohol. I thought maybe I was having liver issues. I went through every single possibility of what was going wrong with me or if it was a combination. So anyways, we're having a great time. We're eating our lunch. And then I take, it was like 2 sips of the beer. Like I hadn't even gone down the neck of the bottle of it. And I just suddenly got so sick. Like I was incontinent in front of my children, outside. It was
oh my God, that had to just
incredibly embarrassing.
Horrible. Yeah.
And I knew, and at that point it really cemented that there is something going on. Like my brain is not just making me incontinent. Like there is something physically going on with my body. We were about 2 hours away from home. And so we went to, we were down in Brown County. And so we went to a different ER. And that doctor said, it sounds like an allergy.
Mm. Ding, ding,
And
ding.
that's, yeah. And that's when I put that, that was like, okay, well, I'm going to now pursue this route. I'm going to go to allergist. I probably went to 4 different allergists saying, this is what's going on with me. These are all my symptoms. And it's kind of crazy because the symptoms are so sporadic. I mean, you have histamine receptors in every organ of your body. And so it could be something like severe uterine cramping, or it could be hives, or it could be, heart palpitations, or it could be, like flu-like symptoms. I mean, it's crazy, and you don't know how it's going to manifest each time. So I went to the doctor.
I think is so brave. Like the fact that you never know what's attacking you and you never gave up on it and you're still not giving up on it. That's where I saw the bravery.
Yeah. And, at first they were like, oh, well, we think you have idiopathic anaphylaxis, because they started doing testing and I started feeling that ill feeling that would suddenly come on, and it kind of comes in waves. And the allergist was like, you're in anaphylaxis right now. And he hit me with the EpiPen and it stopped. It went away. And I was like, this is what's happening.
Oh, wow.
Like, you have found what makes it stop. And there were times that I even questioned that diagnosis and stuff. But, there was no questioning that the protocol of medicines they put me on at that point were helping. But I wasn't going to stop with just the idiopathic anaphylaxis, because idiopathic means we don't know why it's happening.
Right. No answer.
I was like, something is right. Yeah. And that was good enough for them to just say, oh, here's your diagnosis, idiopathic anaphylaxis.
Just use lots of EpiPens or what?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just use lots of EpiPens, take antihistamines, have those on board all the time so that you're less likely to go into a full anaphylaxis. But I kept pursuing, and I found a specialist within the specialty of allergy and immunology who knows about mast cell activation syndrome and mastocytosis. And she diagnosed me with that based on, I had 3 times the amount of histamine in my plasma. My body's just not getting rid of histamine. And so what happens is that basically you have like this histamine bucket, and when it overflows, it just cascades and pushes me into anaphylaxis. And there's so many things that can affect that histamine bucket. So
I can't even, I get seasonal allergies, like really big ones, which I freaking hate, by the way, right? Like I wake up and my eyes itch and my head itches and all these things. And I'm like, oh my God, give me the Zyrtec. And I feel sorry for myself. And then I think about you and I stop feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah. Well, and I get seasonal allergies too. And that just adds to my histamine bucket. So I know if I'm having like a bad seasonal day that I need to be really careful. Like I can't eat tomatoes that day. I can't eat strawberries. I have to be really careful with like fresh fruits. And I can't even have like, I am a very natural minded person, and I was very much into gut health and, kombucha and, fermented foods and all those things. And that's one of the number one things that I'm severely anaphylactic to is like beer and ferments, because they have a really high histamine content. So it was a very drastically different way of eating that I had to undertake. And that was really difficult to do, but it was kind of, that was one of those things where people are like, oh, you're so brave because, you completely changed how you eat. But it was the difference between, being sick all the time or just eating chicken and rice for a while until I could start sort of like testing in new foods and seeing what's causing me to be, what causes me to be ill that day.
I distinctly remember you very recently saying you'd had a plain chicken breast and broccoli, and that sent you into anaphylactic shock. So even chicken doesn't.
Right. Yeah. And it could have been how it was prepared. It could have been, I don't know, that the broccoli was slightly past its freshest time, because whenever something is picked or killed, if it's meat, it instantly begins to degrade, and that degradation causes histamine to be released. And so, depending on how full my bucket is that day and whether or not it's, at the peak of freshness, it can cause me to go into anaphylaxis. And of course, that was, during those 2 years before I found out all of this, before I had the tools to really deal with it, that's actually, when I look back, that's when I feel like I was really brave. And that's when I feel like that's where the gratitude really comes in, because it was easy for me at the time when I was kind of in the trenches to feel like I was broken and my body was just broken, and what's wrong with me and what's wrong with, what's going on. And now looking back, I can say my body wasn't broken. My body was fighting for its life. I dealt with anaphylactic episodes where I was, could not get out of bed or could not get out of the bathroom or, all of those things. And my body survived that with
I have chills.
Yeah.
Like I literally have chills. Just the perspective of your mind to say that my body was fighting for its life instead of my body was attacking me, which, it's that glass half full, half empty perspective. But you've always had this really beautiful, positive outlook and the ability to be grateful for your body for keeping you alive instead of really pissed at it for making you miserable all the time, I think is pretty extraordinary.
Well, I went through phases of, of being mad and being angry and being, that it is broken. But then I kind of, I'm able to try to look at it from the different perspective of that it was really fighting and that, that was probably like, I use that now whenever I'm struggling with something. I think, you know what, body, you are able to handle this. Like you can handle like what's coming. There's an unknown future here. Like right now, I'm pretty stable. I'm sort of in what would be called like a remission stage because we have like a good protocol and I'm able to immediately, as soon as I start feeling any sort of symptoms, and it can just be something as simple as a tingling that I get, like, or my face will start getting red and flushed because the histamine is rising in my body. I'm able to take my extra medicines right away, and then it just completely stops it. So I haven't had a full-on anaphylactic hospitalization in about 2 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. But looking forward, like we don't know what's going to happen, as my body changes, as I get older and hormones change and things like that, like it could start getting worse, or it could start, getting used to the level of medications I'm on and then have to continue to increase those or something like that. Like it's unpredictable. It's an unpredictable thing. And so that for me is probably the hardest part, is not knowing what the future is going to bring, not really being able to plan out things, like, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to work full time for a long period of time to bring in income for the family. It's really difficult because a lot of times I feel like I'm kind of a burden on my family. I don't want my kids have seen me in the hospital. My kids had to learn how to use EpiPens in case that I pass out or they need to save their mother's life. And it's a hard thing for me to have to like contend with, to think about.
Yeah. But Dana, the thing is, so this is all happening, and at the same time that you have some pretty intense passions, some things that you continue to do and thrive at, like dance.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That was something. Yeah. Well, that was something where, I felt as though my body is strong and it can dance. And it was something that I'd always wanted to be a dancer since I was a little girl. But I was kind of told that, I didn't really have the body of a dancer, and, I wasn't like very tall and like willowy. Right. And, and so, but I found a really great dance group of ladies of all different abilities. And I just felt like, you know what, I'm strong and I can dance. And that was actually around the time that, if you remember, Angie, she had passed away.
Yeah, this is a woman that we knew back before Facebook when we were in virtual friends.
Yeah. And so she had just sort of like, it was super spontaneous, something crazy going on in her body. And she passed away and left 4 kids behind. And tragic. I felt like, and I felt like, you know what, I'm dancing, I'm moving my body, wherever I'm at, like whatever stage or whatever's going on with it, I'm going to move it in beautiful ways. And so it can do these horrible things to me, but it can do these beautiful things. And that was part of kind of my therapy, I guess, was that I was going to dance and I was going to make beautiful lines, and it was going to work for me instead of against me.
So what I think that's all really part of your story of living your life, despite all of the things that are happening. You continue to dance at some point, and you mentioned this earlier on, I don't remember how long it's been now, several months ago, you decided that you were going to sell your house and get an RV and put the 7 of you in there and go around the country, which to me, with this unknown, I never know what each day is going to bring. I don't know what's going to make me sick. All of that. I think for a lot of people, they would just seclude themselves. They would just stay in. Well, I don't want to mess with anything because I don't know what's going to happen. And you've absolutely done the opposite of that, which is a really, really beautiful and important thing to do. Do you want to share a little bit about that choice and what that experience has been like?
Yeah. So when I was really sick and I was kind of stuck in my bedroom, I thought that probably the most terrifying thing in an entire life would be to kind of be stuck inside your body. You weren't able to go places, you weren't able to do things. And so I was worried it was going to be like that forever. I didn't know it was going to get better. And so when it did get better, all of the things, all of the terrifying moments, in the hospital with, all the tubes and them trying to, because there was a time where they had to do 5 EpiPens and 2 nebulizers, and they were going to intubate. And it was just, it was a terrifying time. When I started getting better, I was like, I need to live my life because I don't know how much time I'm going to have where I'm going to be feeling well enough to do it. And so I started going back to school full time, getting my bachelor's degree. I started working part-time with some really great ladies I've known for a long time. And I got to, see newborn babies all the time. And that was, such a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is that we were planning practically our whole lives. I've been married for 17 years almost. And practically our whole lives, I've been wanting to take my husband and then my children out to Colorado because I used to live here when I was younger.
And so I wanted them to in Colorado. Is that where you are right now?
Yeah. Okay. That's currently where we are. And but we went out in the summer. We went to Colorado and we took that trip, even though we couldn't really afford it. But it seemed as though, you know what, YOLO, you only live once, right? So we came out here and it was amazing. It was just completely amazing. And so then the next question was, okay, well, can we actually move out here? Can we make this happen? And then my husband, he works for an incredible company. And they were like, yes, you can be 100% remote. My job said, yes, you can be 100% remote. I actually do schooling online. So that was already remote. And then, so we were just going to move to Colorado at that point. And then just as our house sold and we were going to closing, my husband totaled our minivan in an accident, and he was completely fine. But he totaled the minivan, and then this kind of idea just popped in my head that, well, if we're 100% remote working, then we can work anywhere. And so why don't we do that? Why don't we travel? I've always wanted to travel. I love, the experiencing different cultures and locations and just the local flavor of like different, it's amazing things that you didn't even know. And so that's what we did. We pulled the kids out of their Montessori school. And we had actually been homeschooling before. So the homeschooling part isn't actually new to us, but they had gone into the Montessori school when I got really sick because I wasn't able to school them anymore. I was just in bed all the time. So we pulled them back out and we're homeschooling, and they just get, it's like field trips every day. They just get to really immerse themselves in the world. And, it's kind of amazing. It's hard, like you said, I still deal with being sick. And so there are times when I'm not going outside. And there's times when I'm in bed and I'm taking my extra medications. And, there are times where we have to move earlier than we expected to because it's just really wet and moldy in the location. And so we just had to go, okay, we can't stay here. We have to go. And that's been, I think, more hard on my husband because he's very routine oriented.
Talk about getting out of routine. What did the kids think when you told them we're just going to go live in this RV all over wherever the hell we want to go?
They were on board. I mean, I don't know. They were like, yeah, that sounds cool. And there's some, they're missing their friends. But, in the digital age, I mean, they get to, still chat with their friends, FaceTime,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, even with their classes and stuff like that, I'm still in touch with the teachers. And so it's, that part of it's been really great. And I think, like I said, it's been hardest on my husband because he's very routine oriented and he is still working a 40-hour week, 9 to 5 job. And he actually has a second job that he's doing as well with a startup company. And so he does that in the evenings. And so he works a lot.
Holy moly.
And it's, yeah. And it's hard with, having 5 kids, and we're only in a 28-foot trailer.
I got to tell you, that's the thing that I think is the most brave. Like, I don't even like to take a 3-hour road trip with my kids in the car. I cannot imagine 7 of you living, no matter how big your RV is. And I imagine it's not as big as it could possibly be. I do not know how you do that.
Some of it is that, our living room is the world, and so there's some of that, like, go outside and explore kind of thing.
Cool.
And some of it has been challenging in a way that was interesting, because in our, 3,000 square foot home, if the kids were like in their bickering, it would just be, just go away from each other. You go over here, we have several rooms in this house. But now we actually have to like really like deal and, okay, what's going on? Why is this happening? And really sort of, help them through it and facilitate it more. And that's been difficult because it's very, it's emotionally tiring to have to do that for however many, combinations
100%.
of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. That these kids could fight with each other. Anything that's been like any marital issue that we ever had that was kind of like, what, that's on the back burner, or we'll deal with that later. Now you have to deal with it right now.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's been tough because we're in each other's face all the time. But at the same time, I feel like we've just become so close. And that's just, I don't know, that's just something I can't even like quantify as one of the great perks of doing this.
So where have you traveled? Where have you guys gone since you sold your house and took off?
Yeah. So we started in Indianapolis. And then we kind of meandered our way south. And so we went through like Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, all the way down to the Keys. We were in Louisiana for Mardi Gras. We kind of meandered through Texas and up New Mexico. And now we are in Durango, Colorado. And we are heading to the West Coast, to San Diego, and then up the coast to Portland. I usually try to plan this out a few months in advance, but our future is really not planned past 2 months.
Do you think you'll continue to travel, or will you find another spot to land?
Yeah, so we're currently really looking at another spot to land. We kind of, the kids, with my oldest, she's going to be going into 8th grade. And as a kid, I was a military kid, and I actually went to 5 different high schools. And it was really hard on me. And I really, I would really like to settle and allow the kids to kind of build up a community. And that's one of the things with being nomadic that you miss out on, is that you're not really building a community while you're out here just traveling around. And so I miss that. I miss the community that I had in Indianapolis, which was amazing and supportive. And, I still have that, but it's more, they're there and I'm here. And so that's been a big kind of weight on us about, when are we going to stop doing this? I know that there's still things we want to see.
Yeah. Well, and the world is your oyster, but you always have to give something up to have something else. When you're saying yes to one thing, you're always saying no to something else. And you just have to decide which yes is more important at the time. Right. Yeah,
exactly. And that changes.
Cool.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely changes.
Yeah. You got a lot of people to please, but I hope you'll share some pictures of your travels and your experiences with us to put on the show notes so that people can kind of see. I'm telling you, Dana has the cutest kids next to mine, the cutest kids. And we have some curly-headed ones. Her youngest and my third have this same thing. And actually, I have to tell you this. So you recently shared a story about Claire has this gorgeous, bright red curly hair, tight ringlet curls, and my Tessa has bright white blonde curls. And they both used to hate it. You shared that that Claire kind of gets mad and growls at people and don't touch my hair, don't talk about my hair.
Right.
Not cool. And my Tessa used to be exactly the same way. And so that night that you shared it, I said, Tess, I want to show you a picture. And I pulled up Claire's picture. And I said, what do you have in common? And she kind of gave me a sheepish smile. And she said, we both have curls. And I told her, what Claire had said and how Claire reacts. And Tessa looked at me and she said, now I really like being different. I really like the fact that my hair's cool and unique and people think it's fun. She said she'll get there.
Sweet. That's so encouraging. That's so great.
Yeah, it was really, really sweet. Well, I would say that you have and continue to overcome so many difficult obstacles, and even health aside, this choice to take your family on the road and to have this experience together is extraordinary. And throughout all of the difficult things, there are all these tiny little successes. How do you celebrate these successes and these wins?
I'm not sure that I really, at the time, I'm not sure I even recognized them. And it's kind of, I try to make it a practice of gratitude and reflection and perspective. And looking back, I can certainly say, okay, yeah, like we did that. And look how far we've come. Look how strong we are. And I think that that's really kind of how I celebrate it, is just by acknowledging that it happened, and that if we can do that, then certainly we can do this next little chapter.
I love celebration. I'm a celebrator. Like, any excuse to throw a party or have a cake or do something fun, just to remember to stop and remember that there are so many good things that we should be grateful for. And that's why I love this question. And I love asking, how do you celebrate? I think it's so important. Well, we are unfortunately coming to the close of the show. You and I could chat for quite a while, but one of the questions I like to ask at the end of every episode is what your favorite charitable organization is to support. I think it tells me so much about each of my guests, and it's something we can share with the world and bring communities together and raise awareness. So what's your favorite charitable organization to support?
So every year we send money to the ACLU, and it's a great organization that helps with equality for the LGBT, just so many different branches of communities that need the extra support, especially in our current political climate. So we feel strongly.
Of the ACLU. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Would you share your 3 words with us one last time?
Yeah, perseverance, trust, and gratitude.
I love those words, and I love the order that they're in. I think it so succinctly ties up your story, the fact that you're continuing to persevere through all of this, but you trust yourself, right? Your instincts and
the process. You have to trust the process.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And then you're pretty darn grateful to be alive and to have a plan and this beautiful family and all these opportunities despite.
Yeah, definitely. And, I blog about our adventure. I can share that in your show notes.
Yeah, we totally want to share that.
Yeah. So if anyone's interested in, just kind of where are we now, figuring out what we're doing. So yeah, I'll share that with you. And it was really great to talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dana, so much for being with us today and sharing your journey, literally your journey, but your passion for life is extraordinary. Honestly, it gives me pause. It reminds me to be grateful for the little things that I take for granted, like my fruit and all sorts of other things. And it definitely reminds me that the desire not to accept the unacceptable is within me and within all of us. And I thank you for that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I really appreciate you, taking the time to do this. I think, like I said, sometimes I forget, how far I've come or the choices that I've made. And it's easy to dwell on, what you feel as though is your bad choices or your mistakes that you've made. So this was really a great lesson to me in, taking that pause and reflecting, going, okay, you know what, we're doing pretty good. And we're going to be able to continue that in one way or another. So thank you.
Absolutely happy. You're welcome. Happy to have been able to do that for you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. This is Heather Vickery. Make sure you tune in next week. And as always, remember to choose bravely.
The Brave Files is also supported by Frizz Marketing, a boutique marketing firm offering tailored services to small businesses and nonprofits. Frizz helps you distill your authentic story and get in front of the right audience. Contact them today at frizzmarketing.com.
Thank you for listening to The Brave Files. Be sure to visit thebravefilespodcast.com to access the show notes and discover fantastic bonus content. Music composed and produced by Matt Lewis of Union Music, LLC.